Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a comprehensive look at the current national security and crime landscape right here in the U.S. We're synthesizing recent headlines into a really clear, structured picture. From deeply localized tragedies all the way up to massive national threats, the stories are just coming fast. So let's cut through the noise, connect the dots, and see exactly what this spectrum of threat looks like right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda for today. 1. High-profile violent crimes. 2. Bizarre and unusual schemes. 3. Federal law enforcement crackdowns. And finally, 4. The massive fraud epidemic.
All right, starting off with Section 1, high-profile violent crimes. We're looking at the visceral threats that are absolutely dominating local headlines.
Let's start with a timeline that recently gripped the nation's attention. First, there was the tragic disappearance of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Then, following an intense investigation, a formal murder charge was filed against the suspect, identified as D4VD. And finally, the official cause of death was revealed to the public. Tracing a timeline like this really helps us grasp how a devastating, localized event unfolds step by step in the justice system.
So, the crucial point is that while crime can be tracked in broad statistics, these localized events are immediate, visceral threats. At the Washington Press Gala, a suspect is currently facing life in prison, and the Department of Justice indicates that even more charges are coming. In Shreveport, Louisiana, an absolutely devastating event. A gunman killed 8 children, 7 of them his own, and federal prosecutors have now charged a felon with illegally arming him. And over at the University of Iowa, 3 students and 2 others were shot in a nightlife district. These grim facts show just how sudden and unpredictable physical violence in our communities can be.
Moving to Section 2, bizarre and unusual schemes, because sometimes reality really does read like fiction. And this brilliantly illustrates that not all localized crime is violent. Some of it genuinely reads like a Hollywood script. Take the nationwide Lego heist. A suspect was actually arrested in California after allegedly stealing Legos from 70 different Target stores across the entire country. The police literally had to use minifigurines and dried pasta to unravel the whole scheme. Then you've got the bear suit scam. 3 Los Angeles County residents were charged in an elaborate luxury car insurance scam that involves someone literally dressing up in a bear suit. I mean, no way, right? It gives us a brief breather from the heavy news, but it shows the astonishing lengths people will go to for a scam.
Okay, Section 3, law enforcement federal crackdowns. Coordinated responses to nationwide networks. When we step back and look at the federal level, we can see the sheer scale of recent operations. The variety here is staggering. Down in Georgia, U.S. Marshals conducted sweeps that caught 78 fugitives, and they seized 46 firearms, 57 pounds of drugs, and $18,000 in cash. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice is actively dismantling organized crime, having just indicted over 40 Mexican mafia members and associates in California for drug and illegal gambling rings. And regarding historical cases involving Capitol security, the DOJ just brought new charges against Brian Cole Jr., the suspect accused of planting pipe bombs the day before January 6, 2021, and prosecutors are actively fighting to deny a dismissal. Federal law enforcement is really operating simultaneously on multiple complex fronts.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into the massive fraud epidemic, the invisible, multi-billion-dollar threat.
This perfectly bridges the gap between what we can physically see and the invisible digital threats targeting top-level individuals. On one side, you have a highly targeted physical threat, a 20-year-old man with an anti-AI manifesto, accused of attacking the home of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman with a Molotov cocktail. But on the flip side, you have a purely digital threat hitting the highest levels of government. FBI Director Kash Patel hacked by an Iran-linked group. It's an infiltration so severe that the State Department is offering a $10 million reward for information. The battlefield has actively shifted from streets and homes directed to servers and networks.
Which leads us to a really critical question, one that affects every single taxpayer and citizen watching this. When we look at crime beyond the physical acts of violence or bizarre heists, how much does systemic, invisible fraud actually cost the United States government every single year? Seriously, take a second to guess the scale of this. $521 billion. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer magnitude of that number. A federal watchdog actually estimates that the government loses anywhere between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. This isn't money lost in a single dramatic heist. It's a systemic bleed of national resources that is happening quietly, year after year.
Naturally, the government is scrambling to plug these massive financial leaks. Look at the USDA's SNAP program. They cracked down and disqualified over 1,500 retailers, preventing a reported $835 million in fraudulent transactions. Under the continuing fraud crackdown of the Trump administration, the DOJ handled $340 million in fraud cases across America in just a one-week period. And the Treasury Department has rolled out a whistleblower portal targeting transnational Medicare and Medicaid fraud rings, offering massive rewards between 10 and 30% for successful tips.
But this epidemic isn't just about federal money, right? It is deeply personal. AI-driven fraud scams are accelerating rapidly. The credit union TransUnion recently reported that a staggering 1 in 6 Americans lost money to digital fraud over the past year. Sophisticated technology is making it easier than ever for criminals to target everyday citizens, effectively pulling this invisible crime wave right into our phones and our bank accounts.
So, we arrive at the end of our explainer with a vital thought. We've journeyed all the way from visceral local tragedies to bizarre heists, through massive federal sweeps, all the way up to digital networks. The localized, violent crimes absolutely demand our immediate attention, and they grab the daily headlines for good reason. But as we look at the entire spectrum of threat, we really have to ask, are we paying enough attention to the hundreds of billions of dollars quietly draining from our system, and the digital threats actively targeting everyday Americans? It's like a giant puzzle, and understanding the balance of these threats is absolutely crucial. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack all of this today, and keep asking these important questions.